kiss goodbye.
Those two songs are from the same Aespa album. Let's talk about it. Aespa's new album Lemonade has a lot of interesting production choices, so let's start breaking them down.
It is what it is, I feel like she's a whole different animal.
Whole Different Animal sees Aespa going back to their roots with this aggressive synth bass that sounds like the cousin of the bass on Supernova. It makes sense that these basses sound similar because the producer Dem Joints worked on both of these tracks. The track also has these Afrobeats percussion mixed in. This is really cool to hear because I think the last and only time I've heard an Aespa song have this was on Better Things. Another really cool part of the song is the transition from Aespa into G-Dragon, where the bass line goes from what sounds like the Jaws theme song into just dark, spooky, scary. Here's the bass line for Aespa's part of the song. You'll notice the bass itself plays for a short amount of time and it has a lot of tension. Now here's the bass line for G-Dragon's part. You'll notice the sound plays for a lot longer. It's got a deeper bass sound to it, and while it's dark, it doesn't have the same tension as the Aespa part of the song. And if you think that bass is interesting, let's take a look at the title track Lemonade.
I take my karma straight, I'll make you lemonade.
The club banger Lemonade has this awesome techno feeling, and that's thanks to this rolling bass. You'll notice that the bass doesn't play on the downbeat, and what this means is that when the kick lands, the bass plays after it instead of at the same time. Now, what does that actually do for the track? It creates this really strong driving forward motion, which you can hear when the kick and the bass are playing together here. Now, I don't know what was happening in the studio, but the producer went absolutely crazy on this track. With the very slay bass line, laser risers, and four-to-the-floor kicks, this song has all of those old Aespa elements, but with all new fresh sound selection, and it's just chef kiss on the album. Speaking of new elements, let's take a listen to Shakin. Shakin has probably one of the most distorted Aespa basses I've ever heard. The bass line is playing these notes that are on a half-step interval, giving that signature Aespa sound that you can hear on tracks like Supernova, Drama, and even Whole Different Animal. What I really love about this track though is this high-pitched gliding lead they added. Something about this song just sounds like it belongs in the background of like a Marvel movie, or maybe even something like Harley Quinn. Now let's talk about Can't Help Myself.
I can't help myself.
Now this song's really interesting to me because it bridges the world of Aespa's edgy and experimental concept with some of their pretty sounds mixed in. The theme reminds me of Armageddon, where you have a dark instrumental for most of the song, but then there's those moments where a really pretty sound peeks through.
Get done. I'ma get it done. I'll tell me more than they grow.
For example, on Can't Help Myself, we have this really pretty sine lead cutting through the electric guitars.
It's everybody here.
Again, this is just a very interesting production choice because when we're in the world of rock music, it's not typical to hear a sine lead, but Aespa decided we're gonna add a sine lead. But I think the sound selection for this track does a really good job of playing into Aespa's theme of these multiverses. On one hand, we have that pretty electronic sound playing, and then on the other, we have that dark electric guitar. And where normally these sounds would never exist on the same track, Aespa blends them so well together on Can't Help Myself. Speaking of blending worlds, let's look at Camouflage because I think this one's the most interesting.
All night, going too fast in the city lights.
I love how Charlie XCX sounding this track is. Camouflage has Aespa exploring a sound that we haven't heard before, which is hyperpop. Now, something that's happening in the track that's really interesting has to do with the bass. The bass line on this track sounds almost hollow, and I think a lot of that comes down from how wide this sound is. Now, you're probably wondering, what does that even mean? Don't worry, I'm going to explain and show you. Now, a wide sound typically involves a lot of unison or voices. To understand what voices and unison is, just imagine that we have one sound and then we duplicate that exact same sound, and typically you pitch it up or down a little bit until you start to get these really cool layers which sound wide. Don't worry if you can't imagine this, here's for my visual learners. Now that you hopefully understand what voices and unison are, let's understand what's happening with this bass and camouflage. Now, in most songs like Whiplash, Drama, Armageddon, the bass is very centered, meaning it doesn't have many voices. Now for this next part, we're going to look at this tool called an imager, which will show us how wide or centered a sound is. This tool is pretty straightforward. If a sound is in the middle playing, that means it's pretty centered. If it's going crazy and goes blah 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 blah, that means it's pretty wide. Now let's listen to the bass from Lemonade for reference. As you can see, this bass is centered just how I explained. Most bass lines are centered. Now remember that while we listen to the bass from Camouflage. It's a super clear difference when you look at what's happening. Every production element involved helps make this track sound like the fun, high-energy song that it is. But the fun is short-lived as we enter Bite. On Bite, I really love this tape stop effect that they use every time going into the hook.
Keep out, so better stay off my bedside. Careful, 'cause I bite.
Just in case you're confused, a tape stop effect sounds like this. It's a really cool way to build energy in a song by just purely stopping the track and letting the silence build the energy for you. The whole song has a lot of moving parts like the saw chords, crunchy bass lines, and that wub sound. And the whole track just sounds like it's constantly evolving, and that's a lot of respect to the production, because I know for myself when I'm producing, once a song gets past like 10 tracks or something, I end up really confused, scratching my head, and I'm not even sure what I'm looking at anymore on the screen. Now let's take a look at a little more simple song like Switchblade.
Switch it up, switch it up, switch it up.
I really like this disco stab that you can hear sprinkled throughout the track.
Switch it up, switch it up, switch it up. So with the blade, you love.
It reminds me a little bit of the disco stab during the bridge for Supernova. And of course, we have to have a bass driving the track as well. I will point out that since this song plays right after Bite, which has a lot of moving parts, I appreciate the change of pace, where there's now some more breathing room between all of the elements. Now let's take a listen to Roll.
Watch me roll, roll, roll my eyes, I'ma lose my mind. All you do is bring me down, what a waste of time.
I don't know how that got in there. Let's listen to My Plan instead.
Wanna play with me? Come and take my.
This song features very chill Aespa, and I like that the music feature for the track is this wind-up music box. You can hear it being wound up in the beginning, and I really love the detail that it sounds like as the music box is running out of battery or like towards the end of its song, it starts to have this degrading element.
First time.
Here's what detuning sounds like in case you don't know. I just love that detail that as the music box starts to run out of energy, it just gets wound right back up, and then you're into the next section.
Ooh, oh, yeah.
And last, we have Till We Die. Now, I can already hear this song being the closer for Aespa's tours, playing this nighttime at a festival with the fire coming out of the stage, confetti, all of that stuff. Now, that guitar strumming those quarter notes is doing a lot to lay the foundational groove for the track. And the chord selection in the chorus creates that bittersweet but optimistic sound. I don't want to put you to sleep, so for the music nerds, I'll make this quick. The chord progression starts on this major 4, so it already has a sense of wanting to return to home. Then it goes to the major 1, which gives you that sense of relief before jumping all the way up to the minor 6. And this big jump here gives you that sense of optimism and a big boost of energy that you hear in the chorus. Then as it comes down to the major 5, it gives you that audio cue that you're coming to the end of the loop and it's about to go back. Here's what this chord progression sounds like on just a piano. Now, if we look at the question, what is the sonic signature on Aespa's new album Lemonade? The answer has to be the bass, which isn't too surprising given that it's an Aespa album after all. But the bass is the shining star. It's up there with Aespa holding hands and singing along on every song. And what I love is how dynamic the basses are on this album because it's always changing. From the bass line sounding like the Jaws theme song on Whole Different Animal, to the rolling trance bass on Lemonade, and then even that super wide bass that we took a look at on Camouflage. They're all very different in their own unique way, but they all share the same characteristic of sounding like an Aespa bass. I really enjoyed listening to this project. It feels like Aespa went back to the drawing board and studied up on what made them such a great group in the first place, and then they just doubled down on that with all new fresh sounds and fresh elements. I'll be excited to see how this album ages, but as always, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.